Graduating students, my talk is for you. Unfortunately, I cannot see most of you. You are too far. But I can see a sea of you, humanity out here. You know, traditional India has divided human lives into 4 stages: the brahmacharya or the student days, the grihastha or the householder, the vanaprastha, the retired life, and then sannyasa, renunciation. Each was supposed to last about 25 years. In today's world, this has probably collapsed to 3. The first part, the brahmacharya or 25 years of student life, pretty much, or less than 25 years, pretty much remains. And today is probably the last day of that life for you. The second part of the life is the life which has now extended to about 50 years. This is the life in which you work and contribute. And it is this life that I'm going to talk about, that by and large I have gone through over the last 40 years, and you are starting from tomorrow. I start by first offering you congratulations, and to the proud parents out here, that your child is today graduating and entering a new stage of life. I especially congratulate the medal and the prize winners who have worked so hard to have succeeded. It takes a lot to become the prize winner and the medals, and it's really a proud moment. As I pointed out, tomorrow you will enter the second stage of life, which is a period where you will be contributing back to the earth. It will last for about 50 years. From now on, you will enter this real world as an independent person, responsible for yourself, for your family, for your nation, and for humanity at large. This is the period when you work and contribute back to the society. It is stated that actually you are born primarily to contribute to the society. The karma is defined as a time where you actually contribute to this earth. And in fact, after you have contributed and your body is no longer able to contribute, you actually leave the world. This is the way Indian tradition has defined things. Karma is therefore the most important thing. Work according to what you need to do, how you need to contribute to yourself, to your family, to the nation, to the humanity. That is the key part of this life journey. As I pointed out, I have been through that. About 40 years I have worked. And let me tell you that any time I have difficulties, any time I get into some trouble, I get cornered, it is pure just work and work diligently that takes me out of that situation. And it is that work which gives the joy. Sometimes you win, sometimes you do not. It doesn't really matter. When you do not win, you are very sad, wake up next morning and start back to work. And when you work, try to find new ways of solving a problem that really gives you a life, a meaning to your life. And I hope that is what you will really do. This is the real examination of yours. The next 50 years, 40 years, 50 years is the examination of life. Your performance will be judged here. And how well you have trained yourself in the first 20 to 25 years will actually be seen over the next 50 years. You know, you are fortunate to graduate at a time when India is poised to get out of its past and become a strong nation. Each of you will have a special role to play. We'll have a great responsibility in getting us there. Let me therefore say a few words of some things that may help you over the next 40 to 50 years. The first advice may be a redundant advice because you may already have crossed that stage. But let me state that once again in case you have not. In today's world, you need to become a master of information and communication technology. This is a digital world, and if you have not acquired that tools, you better do that. It doesn't take much effort. A little bit of focus, be master of computers and communication technology and it is going to impact all parts of your life. The second part is soft skills. Ability to deal with different situations, ability to speak loud and clear and convey what you want to convey. I think that's extremely important. Hopefully you have got that. If you have not, practice it today. Get it done over the next 6 months. Today it is easy. Later on it will become very difficult. And if you are able to convey clearly and relatively loudly to even a large audience what you want to say, if you acquire that skill, it will be there with you throughout your life. Next, let me come to my next advice. I was fortunate to have a very good teacher, Professor C.N.R. Rao. Probably most of you have heard him, the biggest chemistry professor, one of the biggest scientists that you have had in the last 30, 40 years, a Bharat Ratna. He was my teacher. And I remembered him teaching me elementary particles. And in that context, he talked about half-life of elementary particles. And while teaching half-life of elementary particles, he suddenly stopped and he said, you know, there is a half-life of knowledge also. He said that in engineering domain, the half-life of knowledge is about 3 years. We were in engineering students, so he was telling us about engineering. So he told us that whatever I'm teaching you today or whatever other teachers are teaching you today, by the time you graduate, probably 1/3 of that, or probably more than that, half of that will become obsolete. Half-life, that's what half-life means. And in the next few years, probably almost all of it will become obsolete. So what are you going to do? Why are we teaching you things which are going to become obsolete? And what will you do with that in the life? He then told us that we are actually not just teaching you subject material. We are getting you to learn to learn. Learn to learn. And if you have learned to learn, you will learn for the rest of your life. And only if you continue learning in the rest of your life, then it will keep you updated and you will not become obsolete. You cannot stop learning, and you have to learn from your colleagues. Soon you have to learn from your younger colleagues. You have to learn from your friends. You have to learn from your juniors. And tomorrow you have to learn from your children. Never hesitate to do that. I'll tell you today, most of what I know, I've actually learned from my students. A little bit from my colleagues, mostly from my students. They teach me. I of course teach them also, but they teach me so many new things. There are so many of my students, so each of them have some new knowledge and they teach me. Only when I learn to learn that I continue to remain or continue to not become obsolete. Over the next 50 years, you have a life to live and contribute to the nation. A lot will change by then. A lot of that will be for the better. Let me start with the better ones. And then let me talk about some of the challenges that you will see over the next 30, 40 years. The better ones. For example, it is a matter of time when all our power is going to be generated by renewable energy. It is going to be a solar and wind power and maybe falling water power, and we don't have to look at petroleum or coal or other sources of energy. Something that our forefathers used to talk about, traditionally, that sun gives us energy, wind gives us energy, water gives us energy. Somewhere the humanity had turned around and looked at coal and petrol and other sources of energy, I think we are going to return back. And it is soon going to be solar and wind and this falling water that will give us the energy. And that will be a huge, and this will happen sooner than you expect, probably next 15 to 20 years. You will start, the electric power will come from all this, and you will enjoy this. In fact, you can think of what is called a fossil-free future. That alone will be able to save this earth. If we don't get there, we will be in trouble. But fortunately, we are getting there. Today, in India itself, the solar power and wind power is cheaper or equal to coal power. It's a matter of time. We'll learn to just use renewable energy and get other sources of power out of our life. Similarly, by 2030, we are going to move away from IC engine vehicles to electric vehicles. This is going to be a bigger change in your life. Do you know how much does an auto sector today, IC engine based vehicle, contribute to India's GDP? 7.1%. And the transport fuel processing and distribution is another 5%. So the 12.1% of our GDP, probably about 30 million jobs in formal sector and many more in informal sector are dependent on these IC engine vehicles, petrol vehicles, diesel vehicles. This will all go away. In 12 to 15 years, not long. We'll have to get it replaced by electric vehicles. Now there is a huge threat also here that what will happen to our GDP, what will happen to our jobs? Many of you may have learned things about automotives and things like that. What will happen to you? But these changes are for the good. And this is going to happen. This is more or less started. We in our last part of life is giving it a final push. And you have to accept that, adopt to that. It's going to be good for the country. It's the only thing that will make us free of imported oil. Today, imported oil actually hurts us in many ways, including even our own independence, including our ability to stand up. Many of our policies are governed by the fact that, we have to keep the nations which gives us oil happy. This will change. Pollution, all of you know enough about pollution. A significant dent will be made by these electric vehicles. Your knowledge and skills honed by this institute could make a difference. There are other areas which you have already got introduced at this stage. Robotics, for example, is going to play a key role. And I'm sure you yourself are starting to master that. 3D manufacturing, additive manufacturing. I saw a small machine out there at your innovation center. I'm sure you'll learn more about it. You'll see much more of that. Nanomaterials have all arrived and are going to make a difference to the society. Soon there will be a whole lot of new materials. In fact, you have to contribute to the new materials. New materials will play an important role. Electric aircrafts are not too far behind. It's a matter of time that you will see that. You indeed are getting into a very fast changing world. And you'll say, I have not learned much of these things. Well, I hope you have learned to learn. If you have learned to learn, you will continuously learn and learn each of these things as and when required. Now, having said that, let me come to the transformations or challenges which are not as good. This is something where our generation have not been able to contribute much. And it will be up to you to take up the challenge. And if you do not take up the challenge, there will be serious problems. Just like if we did not take up the challenge of renewable energy, it would have been a problem faced by you. A severe problem, Earth would have collapsed. Similarly, we will face several problems. The first biggest problem that we'll face is water. Water is going to be a major problem going forward. We already have a water problem. Availability of water, availability of clean water. And water is life. Water gives us life. Every drop of water needs to be recycled. Every drop of water needs to be conserved. You will need clean water. You will need to develop new technology. You need to change the paradigm. This is something that you people have to do. and you are at the right time. This is something that several of you are going to directly participate in it, and if you do not, unfortunately, in your lifetime, you will see water wars. Wars due to water. Already some little bit of wars have taken place between states, but you will see much worse. You will see neighbors fighting. Not neighboring states, neighbors fighting on water. Water is going to be a big challenge. The second big challenge is going to be the waste disposal. Now, we have a very, very good slogan called Swachh Bharat. But you know, Swachh Bharat will remain a slogan if the right technology to process every waste does not come out. And we haven't done that. It is not there. Some bits and pieces are there, not enough to take care of waste of 1.3 billion people. Quick fixes will not work. It will require deep technology, deep thinking, deep working, experimenting, failing, and not giving up, experimenting again and again. And I hope you will be part of that. You will say these are very difficult challenges. Are we going to be able to achieve that? But remember, when you entered this college about 5 years back, maybe not 3-4 years back, but 5 years back, if somebody told us that renewables are going to fairly soon be the dominant sources of energy, everybody would have laughed. Say, no chance, it's so expensive, depends on subsidy, there is no chance. In 5 years, things have changed. Today, it is known that renewables are going to come. Same way, these are difficult problems and you have to work sometime for years to solve them, and the water problem and the waste disposal problem, etc. that we are talking about is something solvable. One problem, for example, in energy storage has not yet been solved. But let me tell you, over the next 4 or 5 years, we are going to be able to solve it. While you are just entering, energy storage problem will be solved. And that will help you. There are other technological advances in recent years. Some of them are even more problematic. For example, artificial intelligence. I remember when I entered IIT Madras as a faculty member, there were colleagues of mine who were working on artificial intelligence. Every year I used to hear, oh, they are doing this, next year we'll get this, next year we'll get this. There was pretty little that practically came out of artificial intelligence. And then suddenly over the last 2 to 3 years, you start first seeing some product coming out of artificial intelligence. That one product becomes 10 products. That 10 products become 100 products. And today, there are thousands of things that artificial intelligence is doing. Data analytics, learning in wide variety is being used in wide variety of applications and fields. And it is going to grow exponentially from here. Every year, you will see many, many things which will result from artificial intelligence. Well, in one way it is good. Lot of things will become easier to do. Your mobile phone has already made things very easy to do. Your internet has really enabled you to do a whole lot of things. Google has enabled you to do so many things. See the way the transport has changed, the way Uber and Ola has changed things, the way you are able to, while you are driving, able to figure out maps. All these changes has taken place in the last 3 years. They're not there 3 years back. So, and some of it is due to artificial intelligence, and you'll see many more of this. But there is a downside to artificial intelligence. It will make many of human jobs redundant. And this is going to happen. Very often, you say, all right, you don't have to do too much. Some routine job you will get, and you will manage that. Routine jobs are not going to be taken away by machines tomorrow. And this will become a problem. Suddenly the jobs will shrink. And this will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. And you will face it. Only the best will survive. Others will start getting things removed. Then there are some doomsday scenarios. Can machines become more intelligent than human beings? Can machines take over? Now, all this we have even heard as science fiction. That science fiction is coming closer to reality. And therefore, you cannot ignore them anymore. You have to deal with them. Your generation has to deal with them. The classes which are graduating in 2000, this is something that you will find very daunting. Let me also point out that to be able to meet these challenges, you need interdisciplinary knowledge. See, to meet several of the challenges, even yesterday, we needed interdisciplinary knowledge. And most of our education here is very disciplined, knowledge discipline, specific discipline. So this will become a problem for you. How do you broaden yourself? Fortunately, there are means. I know from whatever I got to hear that you are here, medical students, students of this subject, students of that subject. You are here, your class itself is an amalgamation of whole lot of subjects. Fortunately, the classes have a certain bonhomie. If you say Manipal Institute class, graduating class of 2017, even 5 years down the line, you will be able to connect to people, even if you did not know them in the college. Today and last few days, about 4,000 to 5,000 students have graduated. You can connect to any one of them. There will be a certain bond, and they will be from different disciplines. Utilize them, create that bonding. Create not necessarily only to enjoy, but to throw problems and try to understand things as and when you require. Before you leave today or tomorrow, make sure that all your classmates are on the social media group so that you can actually connect to every one of them. You can be on WhatsApp group, you can be on an email group, you can be on Facebook. Put all of yourself together. Initially, interact with each other socially. Talk about interesting things. Talk about what's happening. But also, as and when required, use them to learn disciplines that you have not learned here, so that you can face life tomorrow and solve difficult problems. Finally, whenever you go through this 4-year, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year course, there are some subjects which you find boring. I know as a student, I had found some subjects boring, some subjects you ignore, some subjects you do not learn. For example, one subject that I didn't pay as much attention, though I don't know how I managed to still get an A grade, was thermodynamics. I didn't learn much. 35 years later on, I was actually working on energy efficiency and working on air conditioning. And suddenly I saw, oh, my lack of knowledge of thermodynamics is hurting. I'm not able to understand what is being talked about. How to solve a difficult problem, I don't know how to. I started going back to the subject. Fortunately, there is enough material today available here and there. You can start going through and all that. And I started recollecting what was taught to me. And even though I had found boring, somewhere it was there in my head. And I was able to put things together and solve difficult problems. So even if some of your teachers have been boring, some of your class subjects have been boring, just see that over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, somewhere or other, you will find that useful. This is something that your institute has given you. The fundamental courses, the way of learning, and your interaction outside class. You would have learned probably outside class as much as you have learned in the class. All the time it happens. Value that. Connect with your alumni, your classmates. Connect with the institute. The institute has given you a lot. You won't understand that today, probably. You'll understand that as the life goes on. Therefore, keep yourself connected to that. And whenever possible, give back to the institute. Thank you very much. Thank you once again. Graduating students, congratulations to you. And once again, thank all of you for inviting me. Thank you.